Lord, thank you again for another chance to hear from Christi and what has been laid on her heart to share with us about reaching Generation Z for you and building those relationships with them. Help us take what we learned from here and apply it into our daily lives. Bless Christi for all of her prep time and her willingness to share with us today, Lord. Thank you again. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Melissa. Well, thank you all for joining. I'm really sorry about my passport situation. I wish I could be there with you in person. I know the dynamic is different, but I'm so glad that we can be together. And Gary just speaks of you all so fondly, and I just love it when he gets to meet with you guys in person in your churches, and it just ministers to him. So thanks for that. And I wish I could go with him, but my job keeps me here at home, and I love my job, but I wish I could be in two places at once most of the time. I get to serve Omaha Christian Academy as the head of school, and I've just completed my 4th year. I will start my 5th year. Well, I never stop. I'm 12-month, a 12-month employee. So I am making plans for the next school year, getting ready to implement those. And God has really been just in all the years of youth ministry with Gary, when we were raising our children and I was staying at home, and then I was teaching when they got into school. And now that they're all, we are empty nesters, all of our children are married, and I get to actually babysit my granddaughter tonight when we're done here together. And I'm really looking forward to that, because that will be my first one-on-one time with little Annalise. Our oldest son and his wife have a 3-month-old. So can't wait to spend time with her. And I just absolutely love being able to be with you all, because you are investing in young people, and that's just been a passion of mine, just in different roles in my own children, but then as a teacher, and then at the university training teachers, and now as a head of school training, being able to plan the programming and just create a legacy. I was telling the group yesterday, I don't mind telling you, I turned 50 about a year ago, and I just feel like there's this urgency now. I mean, it's always been there, but this urgency to really invest and pour into this generation, so that the Church of 2050 will go on strong. And it really is up to us to prepare them. And every generation is different. And we're going to talk about that today. Generation Z is unique. They are unlike any generation before them. And then the next generation will be also different. There are basic things that we have in common, no matter how old we are, with the young people in our lives. But hopefully today you are encouraged. I know you probably have Generation Z kids, students in your life, either in your youth group or in your church, in the classroom, in your family. And so hopefully what you learned today will just further the knowledge that you already have about them, and then give you ways to connect with them. And I think you will be encouraged to know that you have the skills that it takes already, but letting someone else do the research and knowing what it takes, and knowing that you're prepared, hopefully that gives you a lot of confidence and hope for the future. We know the world is really challenging, and I like to identify as a generation guardian. I believe it's my job. God has called me to equip this generation to deal with and meet the challenges of the world. And it's just an honor to be able to do that. There are 3 goals that I have today for our time together. And if at any time you have a burning question or a comment, I know when I go to seminars and I listen to the speaker, I think I always want to add something in my brain. I want to say something. So if that's you, please interrupt me. And Melissa, I can't always hear what's going on in the rest of the room, but Melissa, interrupt me so that I can listen to, and the rest of us can listen to what the group has to offer as well to the conversation that we're having today.
Yep.
There are 3 goals that I have for today, and that is to cover what's unique about this generation, 10 strategies to connect and relate to this generation, and then practical ways to engage them. Those are my goals for today. A lot of what I'm talking about is coming from a book that's called So the Next Generation Will Know, and it's by Sean McDowell and J. Warner Wallace. Both of them are faculty at Summit Ministries. I don't know if you're probably familiar with Summit Ministries. It's an apologetics ministry in a couple different states, mostly in Manitou Springs, Colorado, but I think they're also in Tennessee. They were in California until the content really broke laws or something like that. I'm not sure. But anyhow, some of you would recognize Sean McDowell's dad, Josh McDowell. Josh McDowell was, when I was growing up and when I was in high school, he was a youth speaker, and he equipped my generation to in apologetics. Is anybody familiar with Josh McDowell? Yep. Okay. So you've heard of him. And this book is unique in that it doesn't talk about necessarily the truth claims themselves, which was important to my generation.
Sorry, they just wanted to get the title of the book again. They got it.
Oh, okay. Here it is.
Yes. I'm going to increase you. You see it now? Yes. Bigger. Okay. You're good.
Okay.
Perfect.
So Josh McDowell talked about the truth claims. Sean McDowell, his son, in this book with J. Warner Wallace, talks about how to communicate truth claims, that there are specific ways in which Generation Z can process truth claims. It's not enough to know what they are. We have to know how to communicate them. And in order to know how to communicate them, we have to understand Generation Z. Just to review, and talking about worldview, when we talk about worldview, I don't want to assume we all know what it is. It's a commonly used phrase, but worldview, and this goes back to a session that I did last year. I did it in 2 different parts, so this is going to be just a flyby review really quickly. But what is it? When is it? When does it develop, and how does it develop? Well, but basically a worldview, it can be any worldview. We're not necessarily talking about a Christian worldview, but any worldview can be defined as an orientation of the heart that's expressed in ideas. Those would be those truth claims or those proclamations that we hold about the basic constitution of reality. And then that manifests itself in the way that we speak and the way that we act. That's how we live and move and have our being, which of course is from scripture, but any worldview is going to affect the way that we talk and the way that we act. And then a mature worldview, a cohesive worldview, is when all of these 3 pieces come together. It's a 3-dimensional idea. So in summary, a biblical worldview is that comprehensive framework about reality. And that is what I use to orient my entire being to find ultimate meaning and fulfillment. So you can think about it in terms of Marxism or pantheism or naturalism or secular humanism. All are frameworks in which animate the way a person lives their lives. And so a biblical worldview is the one that we're talking about. Of course, we believe that the Bible holds the truth about reality. And we're going to talk about how that impacts everything. And we need to shift our thinking to worldview thinking and help our students do that as well. We're kind of their guides. We help them do that, and hopefully we'll give you some tools today to do that. 18 to 23 is the age in which a worldview becomes solidified. So if you think about like the work that I am doing, my school is kindergarten through 12th grade. And so I'm looking at the entire experience that our students have, because I know that I'm just setting the table for a biblical worldview, but I never promise to our families that our graduates will have a biblical worldview, because research tells me that's just developmentally not possible. It starts to form, but it's not going to be solidified until they leave high school. And so the research that is done by Roger Erdvig, if you want to look him up, he's done some seminal research on what are the things that students, young adults who emerge with a Christian worldview, what did they have in common in the years leading up to this 18 to 23 time period? And that's the research that I've studied, because that's important to how we are delivering education in our school, is prior to this time. And then how does a worldview take place? It's three things basically working together. It's past influences, it's prompts. Those would be things that bump up, that cause any of us, when we meet a challenge or something that's different, how do we then process that? And so the past influences, the prompts, and the processing all work together to help worldview take shape. And then we can kind of skip through this. These are in the slides. You can go back to them later. These are just review.
That's just somebody else in the hallway talking, Christi.
Oh, okay.
I figured out why you were pausing. I'm sorry.
Okay.
They're taking drinks and cookies outside. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay. Well, if anybody wants to go get a drink and cookies, I would not blame you. Generation Z, what is true about them? You can also, this group they were born in the years between 2000 and 2015. They are also referred to as the iGen generation, like in an iPhone. They are post-millennials. They're often referred to as the app generation or the selfie generation or homelanders. We're going to use those terms interchangeably, but I'm just going to talk about Generation Z. They are projected to become the largest demographic group in the world. And that's what that 32% is. 32% of the global population currently, and they are projected to become the largest demographic group. The 40 to 50%, what that's talking about is when they are surveyed as freshmen in college, 40 to 50% of them self-report that Christian graduates self-report that they struggle with their faith. That is up to half. And then what we're learning from the research is that they indicate that if they left their faith, they did so between the age of 10 and 17. So they are departing early, and while they are still living at home with their parents. Those are self-reported statistics from freshmen in college. They also, that same group says that they went to church. 52% of them will say that they went to church regularly before they went to college or became college age. But by the time they are juniors, that percentage drops to 29%. And then the last statistic is that the percentage of teens that identify as atheist is double that of the general population. So that's something about Generation Z. That's a little sobering, maybe surprising, but it is what it is. So naturally, we're going to ask ourselves, what?
So I'm a little confused because the statistics, they say these are kids born between 2000 and 2015, but at the same time, like I'm thinking my own family, I have one born between 2008, and all of mine are born between 2008 and 2015. So the statistics about them like leaving home and losing their faith, weren't those for when they go to college? So those would be just the very beginning of Generation Z.
Yes, you're right. Mm-hmm.
So we're not saying like the whole, like all these 32%. We're saying the beginnings of Generation Z are doubling faith-based population and all that stuff, right?
Yes,
The
that's right.
trend, this would be a trend, is what we're saying.
Yep. Because
Okay.
I know, like, my twins were born in 2000. So they are, going to be 23 this year. And they're done with college. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then my youngest is 2015. So that's such a big range. Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Okay.
Great point. So what can we do? How are we supposed to reach them? Well, the first thing is just to make a commitment to start early. Well, actually, let me give you 3 things first. First, we need to be able to listen. We need to be good listeners. The second thing is we need to be able to provide reasonable explanations for Christ and for Christianity and our truth claims. And the third thing is we need to be able to provide authentic relationships. So think about yourself. Can you listen? I'm guessing you can. Can you provide a reasonable explanation for what you believe? Probably. Could you learn more? Probably. Are you going to need to learn more? Probably. And then can you provide an authentic relationship with a Generation Z student? I'm guessing that you can, which is, again, why you guys are almost, you're at the top of my favorite list, because for one, you go to a Bible-believing church. I can safely say that because you're part of FEBC, and doctrine in the Bible is really important. So you're already grounded in what you believe, and you are committed to young people, or you're at least interested because you're attending the session. So you have what it takes to do what we're talking about here. And so that's just really encouraging to me. So making that commitment to start early is important. Like being involved in children's ministry. Even looking at this information has really lit my fire to make sure that what we're providing in elementary school, in my school context, is solid. And we have our Bible curriculum is apologetics based. And then of course it's couched in their authentic relationships that they have with their teachers. So that can transfer to home, that can transfer to youth group, church, those kinds of things. So we're just setting them up for success. But think about this for a minute. When you were a teenager, how would you feel if you knew that some adult in your life was attending a session to learn more about you so that they could relate to you? What would that have meant to you? So don't underestimate the importance that you have in the life of a teen that's in your life. The fact that you're attending this, it's wonderful. So I just want to encourage you with that today. And that would go a long way in helping that teen to love you. Like, I want to know more about you, and I went to this thing that told me about you, and here's what I learned, and is this true for you? And to that point too, these are generalizations. Obviously, they're not going to fit every single Generation Z student, but just the generation in general, this is what characterizes them. So what can we do? Make that commitment to start early. Take on the tough issues. I think we're willing to do that. If you, as a school leader, as the person at the top of the food chain, I don't have a choice. I have to take on tough issues, and I happen to enjoy it. That's the way God made me. I'm never bored. Bring it on. Like, I love the challenge. I like the tough issues. I don't always have the answers, and you're leaders in your church, so you know what this is like, or in your family. Like, you don't always have the answer, but being willing to just step in it. And being willing to engage. Like, I don't know the answer, but I'm going to find out. And the fact that it's a little intimidating to me is not going to stop me. It's actually going to spur me on, because I want to challenge, and I want to understand, I want to learn, and I want to forge ahead. So it takes a little bit of mettle, I think, to engage with Generation Z and to be uncomfortable. I can't tell you how many times I've walked into a conversation and I think this is going to be really uncomfortable, but here we go. And I'm sure you do the same thing. And that can apply here to interacting with Generation Z. Also, we need to be patient. We can understand the urgency of the gospel, But when we think about young people, we have to be patient. God's timing in their life is different than what ours would be. When our kids were little and I spanked them for one thing or another, it was irritating that I had to address it again the next day, because I think, didn't we already go over this? We should be done. And it's easy to think that with teenagers too, but they are in process. Think about your own process as a teen. Like, how many years did it really take for you to own your faith? Or maybe it didn't take you that long, but think about your sanctification process and everything that how much you've grown in the time that you've been a Christian. We just need to remember that teens are that way too. And they're just not going to get it right away, and they're not going to be perfect. It just bears repeating. I know you know that, but it's good to be reminded. And then the next part is just to stay balanced. Remember that, I think the Trinity is a really great example of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit balanced and all in relationship with one another, which then goes with the concepts that we see in Scripture, which are truth and relationship, law and grace, justice and mercy. They can seem like they're opposites, but they're not. They go perfectly together, and when they're balanced. So when we are interacting with them, just stay balanced. Don't prioritize. It can be tempting to prioritize making those truth claims, making sure they know the truth, and then not prioritizing the relationship. Don't panic and sacrifice the relationship because you have to get the truth out there. Have patience and trust the Lord in His timing. Any comments or questions?
Yes.
I like that, but prioritizing your relationship, not proclaiming the truth. I feel like that could go with, like, for any relationship, not just with teens, right? Like with your unbelieving neighbors or with your spouse or anything, to prioritize the relationship over proclaiming your truth.
Absolutely. Yes. They're parallel tracks. You need them both. Mm-hmm. That's good. Thanks, Katie. Okay, I'd like for you, before we talk about what Generation Z is like, turn to somebody next to you and use 3 to 4 words to describe a Generation Z student that you know, or a child that you know.
But yeah, way more communicative with us than I was when I was a teenager.
Yes.
Okay, let's come back together. I'd love to hear, just shout out a couple things.
I never voiced this kind of stuff to people.
Give us one thing that you said.
I said, easygoing.
Easygoing.
Okay.
Wanting to be heard.
Mm.
That's not a word, but
Mm-hmm.
communicative.
Communicative. Yeah,
Mhm.
that one.
Okay, great.
I don't know if it's 3 or 4 words, less family orientated and more peer orientated.
Yep. It's good.
We kind of, I said unfocused, kind of like drifting, kind of, finding where they belong, or kind of figuring out different beliefs and seeking where they fit in and what they want to, kind of, believe for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. Excellent. Those are all great. Here are some things. I hope I'm not cutting anybody off. Here's some.
We're good. Go ahead.
Okay. Those are good. We're going to add to those. Here are some characteristics of Generation Z. They are digital natives, and that means that they are being raised by parents who have always had phones. They're the first generation. They are also researchers, so they can fact check you in the moment. They're fact checking their teachers during class. They're fact checking their pastor during a sermon, their youth pastor. So that's going to become important later to how we relate to them. They are visual multitaskers, so they can be on the computer, they can be watching television and be on their phone at the very same time. They don't have any problem multitasking in that way. They are impatient. It's thought that their attention span is 8 seconds. So if you look at Snapchat or Instagram, the ads that are on there are 6 seconds. And that's because researchers, marketers know that they have an 8-second attention span. They are racially diverse. They are the last American generation. I know, I'm not sure about in Canada, but in America, they're the last generation to be mostly white. They are fluid. The technology enables them to be fluid. And this has led to the blending and blurring of lines. So when they go home from school, they're still connected to social media. So if there's bullying going on at school, it's going to happen after school. So they can't, there's homeschool, family, there's blurring there, fact and feeling, there's a blur there. What's public and what's private, those lines are blurred. Sex, family, gender is fluid. Some of the fixed categories that have been fixed for your generation and mine have been broken down. They are social justice oriented. So if you think about the boomers, their big thing was they were anti-establishment. And then we had the millennials, and millennials were environmentally motivated. Generation Z, what they value above all things is human equality. So you will see them taking jobs that they know will have, that will look for human equality. You see them spending their money with companies that stand for human equality. And some of this blurs then with, like, we just came out in the States, June is Gay Pride Month. So you can see them, you know, blending some of these things where they think that the gender and gender identity is fluid, but then also they want to support those human equality causes. They are pragmatic. They lived through the 2008 recession. They have lived through school shootings. So they are, they're worried. They are worried about the future. And interestingly enough, because of that, they engage less in underage drinking. They are more likely to wear their seat belt because they're just more cautious because they're worried about the future. They're overwhelmed. They have too much information and they can never get away from it because it's always in the palm of their hand. They are lonely. They're and this is where you and I kind of know this intuitively, I think, when we work with young people. Phones have actually decreased personal connection, and which seems like it should increase it, but it has decreased it. And the reason for this is, I found this really interesting, is there are a lot of counterfeits. So there are endless counterfeits. One of them is consumerism. They see a lot of ads. If you buy this and this you need to buy this and you will be satisfied. That's not necessarily new, but it comes at them so much, all the ads that are on their phone. Busyness. They live in a state of constant distraction. They are always busy. Pornography is rampant, and so they can view pornography very easily, but that also removes vulnerability. So now they're not facing rejection. They just have this constant acceptance, but it's not that human interaction. Social media, we would think that would connect them, but what it does is it lacks embodied relationships. We need embodied relationships. We need to be face to face. We need appropriate touch. We need a handshake. We need a hand on the shoulder or a hug when we're sad. Social media doesn't offer any of that. Video games is also another counterfeit. I'm not saying these things are all bad except for pornography. I mean, the rest of these things are okay. It's just they tend to be counterfeits. Video games offer respect, community, identity, and accomplishment and control, but it's just this it's just a counterfeit to real interaction. They are individualistic, and individual is the highest authority. They are transparent. And this is something that you and I both need to think about. Generation Z, they know that people are not perfect. So they want and they crave vulnerability from speakers, from mentors, from pastors, from youth pastors, from teachers, because they can relate to the brokenness. So they know they are broken and they know that you are, but if you don't share that, and I'm talking appropriately, but if they don't see your successes and your failures, they are going to struggle because they know you're not perfect. They already know that. We know that. We might as well share it with them. I was sitting with my 27-year-old daughter the other night at some fireworks. It was just her and I in the car. And she said to me, "Mom, I don't really know about some of the hard stuff that you went through as a teenager." And I said, that surprised me. I said, really? Because I'm kind of an open book, and I made it a vow to talk to my kids about anything and everything. And I feel really comfortable talking about absolutely anything with my kids. But I had not intentionally hidden some of the hard things that I went through. So we sat and talked for a little while. I said, well, didn't I ever tell you about the time, blah, blah, blah. And she said, no, I've never heard that. And so then I shared some of those things, and she's not technically Generation Z, she's born in 95, but still, like, they just want that vulnerability piece. And that can be challenging, I think, even for like my parents' generation. So in their 70s, 80s, it's hard for them. It just seems like they're a little more, they're just hesitant to show failures or hard times, or I don't know. That's just something that I think we need to overcome, my generation and those that are older than me and maybe younger as well. And then the last category is that they are post-Christian. 4% of Generation Z students have a Christian worldview. But interestingly, they view religious leaders as better role models than celebrities or sports figures or politicians. So that's good news for us, religious leaders. So just remember in all of this that every young person is unique and they have a unique story. So, but these things probably are true about them. But we also, even though we have differences, we need to focus on what we have in common. And so I want to highlight those really quickly. The first one is and this is not on the slide, but we're made in the image of God. We all know right from wrong. We yearn for eternal life. We love stories. We want to belong and to be loved and to live significant lives. We have that in common. And so let's focus on those things. The other thing is we need to stay positive. This is really important. When we talk about young people, we have to talk positively. We can't say, oh, they're lazy. Oh, they're always on their phone. Oh, the way we talk about them, we start believing that, and then they start believing that. So we should speak life. The word tells us that the power of life and death is in the tongue. So we have to be careful about how we speak about young people. Think about these things as opportunities. So here are 10 strategies that we can use to connect with Generation Z. Well, yes. The first one, I just mentioned it, share stories, your upbringing, your work, your hobbies, be vulnerable, like I said. The second one is enter your kids' world. Watch their movies, listen to their music, try a restaurant they like, play a video game with them, go into their world. They want to connect with you, but you're the adult. You need to make the effort to do it. We have dinner with our kids every Sunday. And they're all grown, like I said, but I love making playlists. So I have Apple Music, and I make playlists for everything. And so one Sunday I had this idea to make a playlist of all 4 of my kids, and they're all married, so all 8 of my kids. What are your favorite songs right now? And I got to tell you, it was a struggle to get through them. I didn't want to listen to them. I didn't really like them, but it told me a lot about them and what they value. And you don't even have to you don't even have to listen to the songs. Just looking at the titles can give you an insight into them. The third thing that we can do is we can practice empathy. We can be good listeners. That's the fourth one. Eye contact, ask questions, and understand before speaking. We talk too much. We talk too much. If you talk to a teenager, don't be dissuaded by their body language or like, oh, they don't want to talk to me, or oh, I'm old, or we get self-conscious and we don't push past it. Look them in the eye and actually expect an answer. Like take an inquisitive posture with them. Like, tell me about like who's the best artist right now, and like who is everybody listening to, and why are they so popular? And then they give you an answer, and then ask them, keep asking them questions. When I was at the university, one of my jobs was to be an instructional coach. Questioning is an art, and it takes time to learn it, but people in your life who are good conversationalists. Take notes on how they ask questions. We have a friend that lives in Japan. He's amazing. We can go out to lunch with him, and we get to the end of our lunch, and he knows so much about Gary and about me. And we love asking him questions too, but he's so good at getting to know us that we have to consciously, ask him questions because he's always wanting to redirect. But if you know somebody like that, they make you feel so loved when you're with them. So get good at listening and questioning, and then just listen. Expressing that unconditional love. I talked about this yesterday in the session. Be really careful with sarcasm. Kids, you can joke with kids, but they need to know that you are a safe place. That if they're going to question their faith and struggle with things, that you're not going to make fun of them. You're not going to jab at them about real questions. Try to have authenticity and genuineness categorize your interaction with them. Mentor a young person. Bring them along to what you're already doing. Let them see how you garden or shop or whatever you're doing. Set reasonable boundaries. They want them. When they come to grandpa and grandma's, if they're your grandpa and grandma and you don't want them to have their phone, then tell them, I really don't want you to have your phone while you're here. Can you just put it by the front door? Set reasonable boundaries. They know that they're reasonable, and then hold them to that. Pray with them. I love it when students come into my office and they might be in trouble or something, and then or they're bothered. Usually when they're in trouble, there's something else going on. And if I'm good at questioning and when I ask them a question, then some other stuff will come out, and I see they start to cry for some reason, even these like big, strong high school boys. And I just am able to say, what's going on? You sound really stressed, or tell me about the tears. What's that about? And then they'll usually tell me, and then I try not to offer an answer. I try just to say, wow, that's really hard. Can I pray for you? Can I just pray for you about that? And that really softens them and gives you an in, and you earn trust fast when you do that. Share a meal. You know that's we have Mennonite background. We're good at that. Share a meal. It means a lot, and the conversation comes up. And then just have a conversation. Just be willing to have a conversation with them. You can do all of those things. This next quote really got me. This is why Gen Z connects from our churches. We don't equip them with a biblical worldview that empowers them to understand and navigate today's culture. We really don't. We need to be able to train them in worldview. We should be redeeming the time that we have with them to do that. How do we do it? We need to recognize a couple of things. We need to recognize that in most of the world, compartmentalization of faith is expected. Like you can have whatever faith you want, but that shouldn't impact the way you live your life or think about politics or do anything else. Your faith is private. That's not true. God created us, body, mind, and spirit. All of those things work together, which goes to the second point. There is a connection between faith and knowledge. Faith can stand up to knowledge. And we should also recognize the difference between competing worldviews. The three worldviews that are most prevalent for Generation Z and the most attractive for them is naturalism, which is going to include secular humanism, Marxism, and existentialism. Also, the second one that they're attracted to is pantheism, that all is God. That would include New Age philosophies and also astrology. Some of our Christian young people think astrology is no big deal. It is a big deal. We need to help them understand that's a whole worldview. And then the third one is individualism. Like we already said, individual is the greatest and is the center of the universe. Life is all about me. That's another thing that they are very prevalent to believing in. But we need to show them that the Christian worldview is very different from all of those things. Also, we need to recognize the importance of intentionality. Our young people are not going to just get a worldview from osmosis or because we're teaching the word in our churches. They're just not going to get it just from that. It's an important part of that, but we have to be intentional about it and helping we have to make the implicit explicit. We have to connect the dots for them. So what we need to do is we need to equip them. And this is how you need to equip yourself. Shift your thinking to worldview thinking. Everything can be thought about biblically. There is not a single part of creation over which God does not say, that's mine. So there is a way to think biblically about absolutely everything. You can grow in your own worldview. There are lots of different podcasts. Summit Ministries is a great resource. Grow your own worldview. Listen to, attend a conference, read articles. do what you can to develop your own worldview. When I did a worldview assessment with my staff at my Christian school with Christian teachers, there were teachers who had Marxist views, secular humanist views, and they would never identify that as that. But when they were asked certain questions, the way they thought about some things did reflect different worldviews, which I think is probably true of our churches too. We might be surprised. And then we need to be able to help our students practice their faith. How do they do that? We need to help them. If we want to teach them about poverty and what God thinks about them, we need to take them to serve somewhere. We can't just talk about valuing the unborn. We need to take them to serve at a pregnancy center or do something with that. The routines that you have in your home, the songs that you sing in your worship services should be connecting with students. So help them practice their faith and orient their heart to the things of the Lord, and then engage in worldview conversations. And then that goes back to just your safety and your body language when you're relating to them. Help them discover the truth on their own. Don't tell them how to think, teach them how to think, and then lead them and guide them to how to think. So, and don't give them easy answers. They can Google the answer. Why do they need you? They need you because you can explain to them how it connects to what God says. And so they don't need pat answers. They already have that in the palm of their hand in their phone. How am I doing on time, Melissa? Oh dear. Okay. Any questions or comments before I go on to the next few things?
Nope, keep going.
Okay. I love this quote. Doubt is not necessarily destructive to faith, but unexpressed doubt is. We want them while they are in our churches, while they are in our homes, we want them to be saying, hey, you know what? I don't even know why do we believe that homosexuality is wrong? Is it a big deal? Like, what does that matter? We need them to be able to say it and express it, because it becomes destructive if they feel like they can't. So when they ask those questions, here's what we need to do. We need to give them 2 whys for every what. We need to tell them why it's true and why it matters. Those are the 2 whys. Why is it true and why does it matter? The Christian worldview is reasonable and it is evidentially true. So we need to be able to provide that evidence, but then we also need to tell them why they should care. How does it impact their lives? How does it change the way they view themselves or the world around them? How does it guide them? How does it protect them? What does it mean to them personally? That's really important. Sometimes it seems like Generation Z kiddos don't care. Apathy is more dangerous than atheism, not caring. And part of the reason I will throw out there, part of the reason they don't care is because we can treat Christianity as just something we do on Sundays, or something that we do on Wednesday night, or we just pray. It's like an add-on. And if it is that, if it's just like a part of it and it's not part of everything, then why would they care? And so we tend to marginalize, without meaning to do it, we tend to marginalize Christianity, Christ, and the truth of the Bible. So how can we, if we see that where they don't care, how can we ignite their passion? What are some passion building principles to help them care? The first one is we need to seek God. We need to pray for them. We don't need to explain harder. We need to pray for them. The second is we have to recognize diversity. People are different in how they express passion. And sometimes a teenager can look like they're not passionate about something when actually they are. So just recognize that people are diverse in how they express, how they're expressive. And then we need to model passion. We have to be the kind of parent or leader that they can model for passion. Sometimes we can be really passionate about our hobbies, or about, like about decorating or cooking or woodworking or gardening or sports or something like that. And we don't talk about Christianity and Christ and God, what God is doing in our churches and in our lives personally with the same amount of passion. There's something wrong with that. We need to be able to model that passion for them. It's contagious. If you think about every organization that is successful, look at their leader. Their leader is passionate, and they model passion to the people in their organization. It's true, and you're the leader in your organization with your kids. Remove obstacles. Sometimes kids aren't passionate because they've got sin. They've got sin that is blocking. Pornography is a very common one. And so having the guts to ask about it. Maybe you don't care about things of God because you're hiding, like there's some stuff standing between you and him. Can we talk about that? So remove those obstacles. It can also be misplaced priorities. Maybe we're driving them to all these kind of sports things, but we're not prioritizing their spiritual formation. What changes do we need to make to give them a passion for Christ? The second is to cultivate those relationships. They are so lonely. Remember that. Get into their world, give them time, extended opportunities in small ratios. You cannot build a relationship, youth pastors, with your whole group all at the same time. It's going to require one-on-one. Women's ministry, same for me. Like if I'm speaking in chapel, I can build a foundation by speaking to the whole student body, but it's going to take one-on-one interaction, those smaller ratios. That's where you build the relationships. And then defining truth. Make sure they know the difference, and this is big, between subjective opinion and objective truth. A lot of young people think that Christianity is a subjective opinion, but we know it's not. It's an objective truth. So help them understand that Christianity is objective truth. It is the only cure for spiritual death. And it's unique to all the other worldviews. So that can help to raise the expectations. Ask students to demonstrate their faith and their knowledge. Don't just entertain them in church or youth group or in class or in your home. Ask them to demonstrate their faith in relevant ways, and then stay relevant. Help them see the connection between the truth claims and why it matters to them. So for example, we talk at our school, our focus this year was on creation. We believe that everybody's created in the image of God. Why does that matter? What does that matter to me? It matters to me in a couple different things that I think that young people think about it or that are a part of our world. One is pornography. I keep talking about it, but this is why it matters. We are made in God's image. That image, a picture, that is someone who was created to be loved, someone who's created in the image of God. So that doesn't fit with I mean, that's why it's wrong. It's not just wrong because for a random reason. It's wrong because we're created in the image of God and that person was created to be loved. Same thing with the view of the unborn. Why does it matter where we stand on the issue of abortion? Why? Because if we end a valuable life, that's in opposition to created in the image of God. Bullying, we can't treat people poorly because we're treating an image bearer poorly, and that's not, mistreating an image bearer of God is not okay. So those are like three relevant connections that might matter to the life of a young Christian. And then I'm going to, I know we're out of time. We're out of time, and I don't want to go over. Oh, I'm 2 minutes over. I'm so sorry. There are some more slides. There's more information in this book. You've got the title of the book. Okay. Well, you've got the title of the book, and there are some really good approaches. And what I like about this is in the margin, there are different ways or different ideas for a church setting, a school setting, and a home setting. Like if you're a grandparent or parent, or if you're a teacher, or you're a pastor, youth pastor, there are different ideas. And they do talk about this training versus teaching that you see up there too. Training is we're getting somebody ready for an event. That is what we're doing with our students. And so we need to make sure that we are doing that, because when they get to college and they see people who are confident in evolution, they're confident in gender fluidity, they're confident in their views, we have got to train them. We have got to train them for those moments. Otherwise, they're going to say, you know what, the church never gave me answers to these hard questions. My Christian parents never, I don't see how Christianity is relevant. Let that not be said of us. Here are some last thoughts that you can do. Engage kids early when they're young. The second one is model healthy technology use. Do you text while you're driving? Do you have your phone out during dinner? Are you answering the phone every single time it rings? Your kids are watching that. So make sure you're modeling healthy technology use. Third one, setting healthy boundaries. We kind of talked about that already. But the fourth one, I think this is really a brilliant idea. Any movie that you see, book that you read, article, even a commercial that's 30 seconds tells a story. It shows a origin, shows predicament and resolution. So this connects to the gospel story too. The origin, God created the world. The predicament is we live in sin. Jesus is the resolution. So you see that storyline in almost any advertisement, and that's a really good way to identify worldview. So like a mom's driving a minivan and she's got a car full of soccer players. So you know origin, you know she's a soccer mom. Then somebody runs out in front of the van and she slams on her brakes and she saves the life of the kid or doesn't run over the soccer ball or whatever. That's the predicament. And the resolution was those brakes worked. And so that car is safe. That is a quick worldview. It's not necessarily a worldview, but it's the story, and it's behind almost any narrative. So to get kids thinking about it, and even training yourself to think about what?
Everybody, the others that are out and they turn on their Wi-Fi, so we're starting to glitch.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'll just be done.
Thank you very much. That was
Yes.
excellent.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
It's
you,
good to be with
Christi.
you.
Hello.
Thank you.